Hello,
Hello.
how's it going? I'm Chris Carlone from Humareso, and we have Mr. Baldino here.
I'm John. How are you?
Alrighty, sorry for the delay. We're kicking off a couple minutes behind, but we have some great stuff to get to.
We wanted to give Mr. Trump a chance to get going before we got going.
We did. So we are going to talk job descriptions today.
Okay.
Hugely important part of a lot of organizations. So we'll first kind of kick off and kind of ask why. What's the importance behind job descriptions? Why do we need them in the first place?
Yeah, fair question, right? So the basics behind that, from a job description standpoint, are you should be able to tell someone what's expected of them. And a job description is probably the cleanest way to do it. Because it gets rid of some of the questions about, and I'm sure some of the folks out there have experienced this, you start to do performance reviews, or you sit for a discipline action because, in a manager's opinion, you're not doing your job. The employee's response could be, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, or I thought I only had to do this half of that. And that kind of stuff, with a job description, you always have sort of ground zero to point back to. Right?
You give them a baseline.
Exactly. This is from day one. You knew you were supposed to do this. We talked about this. Where did that fall apart? Right? Then you can start having more specific questions.
Okay, great. Following up on that, when should we have employees review this? When should we have them sign off on it?
Yeah.
What's a good time to do that?
And some of the the necessity around job descriptions, I think there's a compliance component to it as well. I think best practice is that job description should be presented with offer.
Okay.
If you're bringing somebody into the organization, and I don't care if their salary, if it's a line level hourly position, they should be able to be given right from the onset,
Sure.
as part of onboarding, this is what we expect. And walk through it with them. Take a few minutes and walk through it. If your job descriptions only say, stand at the cash register and take money, perform other duties as assigned.
Right.
That's so general. I'm big on the other duties as assigned. I think that should be in there, but that's not enough. Take the few minutes, walk through it with them, and then they're signing off on it to say, not because necessarily the law always requires, although we can talk about that more specifically another time. In general, the law may not necessarily require that, but as a company, you're trying to set them up for success.
Right.
Right?
I think it's important to get those proper expectations set up front, make sure they're very specific.
Expectations are a big deal. This, in some ways, is very relationally minded. So, and I say that to mean, when someone joins something that's social, a group of some kind,
Sure.
you try to figure out what's sort of the expectation about this group. What are we supposed to be about? This sports team, my position, right? That kind of stuff. If I'm doing intramurals, if I'm at the gym, if I'm working with a trainer, if I'm doing a community service project, there's expectations behind it. This is no different. Relationally, we desire that, so we have sort of a path.
Okay. And then in that job description, what should it look like? What type of format should that description be created in? Is there a specific format?
The magic format.
Yes.
Yes, the famous magic format. No, there is not a magic format,
Okay.
but there's components that would need to be on there. Again, some companies will do things that are more stylistic, meaning they want the job titles and they want the look of the job description, their forms to be trendier than other companies may care about. But you want to put things on there like, obviously, job responsibilities. If licensure or some sort of special qualifications are required, I would have that on the job description as well, because if their license lapses, for example, we've already just kind of disclosed to them that license is required for these responsibilities, right?
Sure.
So you want to have that on there. Whether it's full-time or part-time, exempt or non-exempt, so that we have an understanding of whether overtime compensation is going to be part of this or not. If you're multi-site, if the person's requirement is going to be that they travel site to site, perhaps you put a line on there about travel from site to site being part of the responsibility. Or if they're only to be based out of one place, again, put that on there as well. Some job descriptions do put salary ranges on there because you do want to give folks sort of the range of comp for the level that they're in, because you may have folks come back and say, I want 10 grand more, and we can very clearly say that's awesome, but
Right.
this is our range for this role.
Okay. Talking about a hot point right now is the overtime.
Yes.
Right. So that brings us to the question of when should we be looking at the job descriptions that we've created, and even further, why should we look at them?
Yeah. So good question. So I'd say a couple things. One, you should look at these job descriptions annually.
Okay.
For sure. Very similar to like a handbook, right? Once a year, do a review. The production of the company, the service offerings of the company, something may have changed, and so therefore the role has either stopped doing some certain things or has started doing other things. Update it accordingly. But I will tell you, this is a great opportunity for you to get your staff involved. It shouldn't just be a manager sitting back and saying, well, let me hold this thing and review. That's fine, but give it to the employee as well and say, hey, is this still true? What are you finding going on in your day-to-day? It's often in those times where an employee will add one or two things and give it back to a manager who says, you're doing that?
Right.
I didn't realize you were doing that. Or how often are you? I thought you did that one time to help out. Oh no, I'm doing it all the time. I had no idea. That is not unusual.
So that could have further implications then. Maybe they're taking on certain duties that could put them in an exemption class or what have you.
It certainly, at the very least, it could put them in a predicament where, even aside from the description, maybe you have some sort of cultural issue as well, that you have a particular employee who's covering for others by covering some of their duties. All right, well, systemically, we need to look at that. That's not okay.
Right.
It's great that the work's being done, but maybe that's not really something that we should change the job about, but actually go back and change sort of the group dynamic.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, and I like the idea of getting employees involved, kind of integrating them with the process. Would you also recommend having the managers kind of complete the job descriptions for their employees, or what's the best way to go about that?
Once they gather the information, I
Sure.
think the manager should be the one to put it together, of course with support from HR, and then give it back to the employee to update, sign off on, to say, okay, these are the tweaks. We get
Sure.
it. We get that you don't have to do X anymore.
Right.
We know that, right? We took it off the description.
Okay.
I think that's helpful.
And then at that point, we should probably circle back, have them review the job description,
Yeah.
employee, and sign
Yeah.
off on it again.
Because when you do performance reviews, when you start looking at, are they doing the job we've hired them for, you've got the most up-to-date expectations,
Sure.
right, that you're working from. I watch organizations pull out something from 10 years ago because they haven't
Dust it
looked
off,
at,
right?
and they look at this job description and they're like, well, you're not doing this. We don't see you faxing the way that, okay, well, faxing, unless you're a government agency, sorry government agencies, but most companies, we're not faxing as much as we used to. If that's in the top 3 of someone's job description, it might be time to update.
Right. Right.
Or you're using BlackBerry. Sorry, BlackBerry. Using BlackBerry and a bunch of stuff. That isn't necessarily fresh.
Right.
Is that really what people are doing? You still have on here that that their time on their BlackBerry is important. Your company may not even give out the BlackBerries anymore, so
Right.
update that stuff. Right?
Okay. Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much what we have as far as job descriptions.
Awesome.
We're happy to take a look at any if you have any questions.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're dusting them off from a drawer from however long ago. Send them
Or
on
you don't
over.
have them at all.
Or you don't have them. Don't take on that burden alone. But send them on over. And thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Have a great weekend.